morning. This is Mrs. Show. Today we're going to learn how to use the distributive property to solve two-step equations. So get your notebook out, get your folder and your pencil. Let's write solve with distributive property. All right, so title your notes, solve with distributive property. All right, so as we get started, we need to remember how to use the distributive property. So just watch this page. You don't need to write it down. Remember here we take a -2 times 3x to get a -6x. And then we also take a -2 times a -5. So a negative times a negative is a positive 10. So this is called using the distributive property when you take the number out in front and multiply by everything in parentheses. So on the second one, I would take 5 times 3 to get 15, and 5 times -7a to get -35a. So this would be a 15 minus 35a. All right, I want you to watch these two. You do not need to write these down. So these are the types of problems we're going to try to solve today. First, we're going to have to use the distributive property. So I would take 2 times x to get 2x, 2 times 1 to get 2, and then I would write equals -7. And then from there, I would draw my line. And remember, first step is add or subtract. So if it says +2, I subtract 2. And here I can box and check. -7 and -2, are they the same or different? They're the same. Do I add or subtract? Add. 7 plus 2 is 9. The higher number is negative. And then 2 and x are written close together. It means multiply. So I do the opposite of multiplying. I divide both sides by 2. So now when I take -9 and divide by 2, it's not a whole number. Most of yours will be whole numbers. This one's not. But I know it's going to be negative, and 2 goes into 9 4 times, because 4 times 2 is 8, with 1 left over. So you could say -4.5. If you used a calculator to do -9 divided by 2, it would be the same as -4.5. All right, so here's what we're trying to do today. Watch this one. We're going to take 4 times 2x to get 8x. 4 times -5 to get -20. So first you use the distributive property, then you draw your line, and you're solving a two-step equation. Remember, when you solve, your first step is add or subtract. So I notice there's a -20. I'm going to do the opposite of -20. I'm going to add 20 to both sides. So -20 and +20 cancel. Bring down your 8x. 4 plus 20 is 24. Divide both sides by 8. Your answer would be x equals 3. Okay? So I want you to write down this first question in your notebook, so you have examples to look back at. Write -2, then in parentheses, 6 minus 3x equals 24. Okay, we're going to do this together. So our first step is use the distributive property. And you might want to go ahead and write down your tic-tac-toe chart for multiplying and dividing here, so we can remember whether our answer is positive or negative. Okay, first I'm going to take a -2 times 6. So a negative times a positive is a -12. Then I'm going to take a -2 times -3x. A negative times a negative is a positive. So I'm going to put plus 2 times 3, 6, and then put your x behind it. It equals 24. Okay, so first use the distributive property. Then on your paper, draw your line. Look at the side with the variable x. Remember, your first step is add or subtract. So if you have a -12, you've got to ask yourself, what do I do to -12 to make it 0? Plus 12, right. So go plus 12, plus 12. -12 and +12 cancel, they become 0. Whatever doesn't cancel, bring down your 6x. 24 plus 12 is 36, good. My last step is multiply or divide. So when 6 and x are written close together, that means multiply. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to divide both sides by 6. So 36 divided by 6 is 6. So my answer would be x equals 6. Okay. Write down our next problem. Write 4, and then in parentheses, 5 minus 2n equals negative 12. Remember, if the video goes too fast, you can pause it. All right, so first we're going to use the distributive property. Do this with me. 4 times 5 is 20, right? And then I'm going to take 4 times negative 2n. A positive times a negative is a negative 8n. Bring down your equals, negative 12. All right, from there you draw a line to separate the sides. Look at the side with the variable in. Do not worry about the negative 8 times n. First step is add or subtract, and you're asking yourself, what do I do to 20 to make it 0? Subtract 20, right. So I'm going to do minus 20, minus 20. I'm not dividing here, I'm taking away 20. So I had 20 here, 20 take away 20 becomes 0. But be very careful here. See this minus sign? That means it's a negative 8n. So you need to write negative 8n equals, here you can box and check, are negative 12 and negative 20 the same, or are they different? They're the same. Do you add or subtract? You add. 20 plus 12 is 32. The higher number is negative, so you should have a negative 32. Your last step is multiply or divide, but when negative 8 and n are written close together, that means multiply. So you're going to do the opposite. You're going to divide both sides by negative 8, right? Whatever this coefficient is, the number in front of n. If it says negative 8n, you divide by negative 8, because a negative divided by a negative gives you a positive 1n. That's what you want. Here, this tells me how to get the answer. Negative 32 divided by negative 8. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So my answer is n equals 4. All right, we're going to do 2 more together. Please take very good notes because you can look back at your notes for your assignments, your quizzes, and tests. So the next one says 24 equals negative 3, and then in parentheses, 8 minus 4d. All right, bring down your 24, bring down your equals. Here we're using the distributive property. So negative 3 times 8 is negative 24, good. Then I have to take a negative 3 times a negative 4. A negative times a negative is a positive 12d. All right, after you use the distributive property, draw your line like that. Look at the side with the variable d. Don't worry about the 12 times d. Worry about the negative 24. What do you do to negative 24 to make it 0? You add 24, right. So you're adding 24 to both sides. 24 plus 24 is 48. Negative 24 and positive 24 cancel. Bring down your 12d. Okay, when 12 and d are written close together, what's that mean? Multiply. So we do the opposite. We divide both sides by what number? 12, right. So 48 divided by 12 is 4. Bring down your equals. 12 divided by 12 here is a 1d. So I get d equals 4, or 4 equals d. All right, write down our last problem we're going to do together. Write 4 equals negative 2, and then in parentheses, 4 minus 3t. All right, we're going to do this together. So bring down your 4, bring down your equal sign. Now you're using the distributive property. First you take -2 times 4, which is -8. Then we take -2 times -3t. A negative times a negative is a positive 6t. Okay. After you use the distributive property, draw a line to separate the sides, because what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Look at the side with the variable t. Don't worry about the 6 times t. We're not worried about multiplication and division. We're worried about the -8. What do you do to -8 to make it 0? You add 8, right? So +8 plus 8. 4 plus 8 is 12. Good. Bring down your equals. -8 and +8 cancel. Bring down your 6t. The last step is to divide by 6. Good job. And 12 divided by 6 is 2. So my answer would be t equals 2. Okay, I'm ready for you to try 2 of them on your own. So you're going to pause the video. You're going to try 1 and 2. Remember, you're going to use the distributive property first, and then you're going to solve your equation by adding, subtracting. Then last step, multiply or divide. Go ahead and pause now. Try these 2 problems. When you get done, click play. All right, let's see how you did. So on number 1, when you use the distributive property, did you get an 18 minus 10y? Then was your first step to subtract 18? And was your last step here to divide by a -10? 20 divided by -10, you should have the answer y equals -2. All right, number 2, when you use the distributive property, did you get a -21 plus 3p? Because a -3 times a -p is a positive 3p. Your first step should have been add 21 to both sides. Your second step should be divide by 3. So when you took 6 divided by 3, did you get 2? If you want to pause now to fix your problem and make corrections if you need to, go ahead and pause. If you did okay, we're going to go to the next 2. All right, we're going to try 2 more on your own. I want you to try 3 and 4. Pause the video now. When you get done, click play. All right, so check number 3. When you use the distributive property, did you have a 24 minus 15k? Was your first step after that to subtract 24 from both sides? And then you had a -15k, so did you divide by -15? -30 divided by -15 would give you 2. Okay. Number 4. See if you got a -16 plus 8x when you use the distributive property. Then was your next step to add 16 to both sides? Was your last step to divide by 8? 24 divided by 8 will give you 3. So I want you to make corrections if you miss one and make sure you understand. So pause now if you need to make corrections. And then hit play once you get done with your corrections. How are you feeling today about solving 2-step equations with distributive property? 3 means you totally get it. 1 means you're lost. You could be a 2 in the middle. If you're a 1, please go back and try again before you take your quiz. You have a quiz today in Canvas. Good luck.